As one of Fox News' most dependable voices for decades, Harris Faulkner has won 6 Emmy Awards. She has established a reputation for professionalism and authority while remaining composed in the most intense situations. Beneath that polished exterior, however, is a life molded by personal tragedy, terrifying experiences, and events that almost permanently altered her career. And a deeper question was raised when she abruptly moved away from the screen. What did viewers not witness that Harris Faulkner had to go through off-camera? Veteran Fox News anchor Harris Faulkner, who was well known for her commanding presence on daytime television and political coverage, abruptly left the spotlight in late 2025, leaving viewers and media observers curious about her whereabouts. After working at Fox News since 2005, the 6-time Emmy winner abruptly stopped appearing on the Faulkner Focus and other regular shows between November 2025 and January 2026. She cited her desire to attend to significant personal matters as the reason. However, this raised a lot of concerns, and people began to wonder what actually happened to Harris Faulkner. Following the 2024 U.S. election cycle and the 2025 presidential inauguration, there was a period of intense news coverage before the break. This was the first extended absence in Faulkner's almost 2-decade Fox News anchoring career. Speculation on social media and in business circles was stoked by her abrupt disappearance from the air. The reasons behind her departure and the implications for her future in broadcast journalism were questioned by many viewers and commentators. Shortly before her hiatus, Faulkner posted a statement in which she described her time away as a deliberate step toward family support and personal development rather than a retreat. She clarified that helping her oldest daughter, Bella Berlin, attend college was one of her top priorities during the break. For her family, this was a significant turning point that was both joyful and difficult. Faulkner also talked about starting what she described as a romantic rebirth journey with her husband, Tony Berlin. She disclosed that after years of juggling demanding assignments with parenting and work obligations, she and her spouse wanted to get back in touch. Fans and co-workers gathered around Faulkner's declaration. Everyone was taken aback by her candor and willingness to take time off work for her family's welfare, but many concentrated on the larger discussion because her abrupt leave of absence highlighted the significance of mental health and work-life balance. This was particularly true for public personalities like Harris Faulkner, who frequently have to balance the demands of both work and family. But some family issues have also resulted from the break. She disclosed on air in late 2025 and early 2026 that her daughter had experienced some horrible things, which was one of the reasons she had to temporarily step away from her network responsibilities. Veteran Fox News anchor Harris Faulkner gave a series of intensely personal on-air reflections in late 2025 and early 2026 that provided unique insight into the emotional challenges underlying her recent hiatus from broadcasting. Faulkner said she wanted to address serious family issues. Faulkner has been a major player at Fox since 2005. Her daughter's experiences are one of these worries, which generated a lot of conversation among viewers and media observers. Faulkner acknowledged that her daughter's horrific experiences in recent years, which she described as painful and formative, had contributed to her decision to take a break. She didn't share all the details, but she did say that her top priorities are protecting herself and helping her kids through these difficulties. The anchor has long been transparent about her unspoken concerns about her daughter's security and welfare in the face of the demands of a prominent public life. In previous interviews, Faulkner, who is the mother of 2 biracial girls, Bella and Danica, has discussed the challenging discussions she has had with them regarding race, identity, and faith in the divided United States. Her worries are similar to those she expressed in public in 2025 when she said she was worried about how racial and religious tensions might impact college students and society at large. These anxieties stemmed from the pressures her own kids faced in the real world. Additionally, Faulkner emphasized the emotional toll of significant life changes, particularly as her oldest daughter Bella got ready to start college. She referred to this shift as one of the most difficult realities of her life. In addition, she was helping her youngest daughter navigate the highly competitive world of sports, where bias and fairness are major concerns for today's young athletes. She was able to address her long-standing mom guilt after taking a break from the anchor desk. Because of her demanding job and the harsh criticism from outsiders, she suffered greatly from missing significant occasions. After a short break, she is now getting ready to go back on television. However, Harris Faulkner has been off the air for some time due to a different tragedy. She was devastated when she lost her father during the COVID-19 pandemic. Faulkner has candidly discussed how the passing of her father, retired Lieutenant Colonel Bobby R. Harris, was one of the most significant personal losses of her life and how it put her faith and fortitude to the test. Amidst the isolating circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, she disclosed that the death of her father on Christmas Day 2020 was an extremely distressing event that altered her spiritual path. According to Faulkner's memoir and interviews, her father served as her compass and a lifelong role model, influencing both her personal and professional values. Because of the severe pandemic restrictions in place at the time of her death, she was unable to witness his last moments, which made her grief even more intense. Faulkner acknowledged that she had significant difficulties with her faith in the weeks that followed. After losing the spiritual foundation she had depended on since childhood, she acknowledged that she began to cry more and pray less. When she found his annotated Bible while packing her father's possessions, she eventually found a way to deal with her grief. He wrote handwritten reflections on scripture that had supported him throughout his life, which filled the book. Faulkner found comfort and a spiritual connection to her father in his interpretations as she perused his notes. Afterwards, she described this experience as a moment of spiritual realignment and described how reading his words made her life feel like it was being put back together after it had been torn apart. Faulkner has been candid about this period of her life, particularly the ways in which her father's legacy continues to influence her conception of purpose, strength, and faith. However, she had other tragedies that made her doubt her faith. She also had to deal with her mother's death a few years prior. Faulkner has also discussed how her life and career were affected by the passing of her mother, Shirley Harris. Following a battle with advanced lung cancer, Shirley Harris passed away in November 2016. During the latter stages of her illness, Faulkner assisted her mother in caring for her, and she witnessed this struggle firsthand. Faulkner was profoundly impacted by the event, which changed her perspective on faith, love, and grief. Faulkner has called her relationship with her mother inseparable and acknowledged Shirley for teaching her the principles that ultimately led her to a prominent career in journalism. After her mother passed away, she wrote that she missed her so much that it physically ached her heart. She has also talked about the intense sense of absence that followed her death. This sincere statement highlighted both the strength of her bond and the long-lasting emotional impact of her mother. Faulkner greatly admired her mother for her fortitude, warmth, and faith, all of which influenced her own work ethic. Faulkner relied on the values of compassion, resiliency, and service that were instilled in her during her mother's illness and the years that followed. She spoke in interviews about her mother's advice to face life's obstacles head-on and to be a comfort and support system for others, even when facing personal struggles. Faulkner's perspective on the psychological effects of a serious illness was also shaped by her experience of caring for her mother in her last months. She applied this knowledge and experience to her work, particularly when she reported on the COVID-19 pandemic. While covering the global challenge, she was unaware that she would lose her father. Faulkner has given her audience a glimpse into the inner bravery that underpins her public persona, and the passing of her mother continues to be a pivotal moment in her life story. She has overcome many obstacles, such as being stalked by an ex-boyfriend, thanks to the support of her family. Harris Faulkner had a terrifying experience with stalking prior to becoming a well-known Fox News anchor, which had a profound effect on both her personal and professional lives. In the 1990s, Faulkner was harassed nonstop by a former boyfriend who would not accept the demise of her relationship while she was an evening anchor at WDF-TV in Kansas City. From North Carolina to Kansas, the man pursued her. The fact that he was following her every step and intensifying his behavior made it all the more devastating. Initially, he was merely sending her flowers and calling her repeatedly, but things soon got worse. The stalker began to arrive at Faulkner's home. While she was outside her apartment, she harassed her with unwanted attention. He sent a terrifying message about his tenacity and disrespect for boundaries when he keyed and vandalized her car. This, Faulkner recalled, was one of the most disturbing periods of her life. At a time when she was developing her career and attempting to establish herself in television news, it undermined her self-confidence. When the man violated her sense of security and safety by breaking into her home, the stalking took an even more terrifying turn. That time, Faulkner's cries woke up the neighbors and the police came. In the end, he was arrested. Even after he was imprisoned, the intruder remained obsessed with her. According to Faulkner, learning of his release from prison was a life-saving moment that enabled her to take precautions she might not have otherwise thought of. Had it not been for that warning, the experience would have turned out quite differently. Faulkner relied heavily on her faith and inner fortitude to get through the ordeal, which has become one of her life's challenges. In addition to her personal life, Faulkner has experienced trauma in her professional life, such as when she covered a tragic incident. Faulkner, particularly her live reporting from the scene of the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary shooting, has been candid about the emotional toll of covering some of the darkest periods in recent American history. On December 14, 2012, she was on the ground in Newtown, Connecticut, helping the community deal with the fallout from the horrific mass shooting that killed 6 adults and 20 young children. This continues to rank among her career's most terrifying assignments. Faulkner, who was reporting live from the school's parking lot, saw the arrival of hearse carrying the bodies of the victims. She later described this moment as emotionally taxing and unbearably heavy. Rather than merely stating the facts, she naturally requested a brief pause to allow viewers to share in her sense of the tragedy's magnitude. After her assignment, Faulkner acknowledged in interviews that one of the most challenging times in her career was covering Sandy Hook. She acknowledged that the emotional strain of the scene had even caused her to cry live. Although journalists are expected to maintain composure, Faulkner clarified that sometimes the human impact of such events is too great to be contained. She stated that as long as she could continue to report the story with compassion and honesty, she was willing to show her vulnerability to the audience. Faulkner experienced severe trauma from the assignment, which influenced how she would cover tragedies in the future. It also strengthened her conviction that striking a balance between professionalism and humanity is crucial. However, during one of America's darkest moments, she conducted an interview with the president. A noteworthy interview that Harris Faulkner did with then-President Donald Trump during the height of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations after George Floyd's death in 2020 garnered a lot of attention. She received recognition in the media community for her combination of professionalism, introspection, and journalistic bravery. During the televised sit-down, Faulkner confronted Trump directly about his contentious tweet and questioned him about how he responded to the national upheaval. The shooting begins when the looting begins. However, a lot of detractors thought this was provocative. She questioned him about the comment's origins and implications, outlining its troubling historical context, rather than allowing it to remain unexamined. She actually had a back-and-forth conversation with the audience about leadership and race. The fact that she centered her questions on her personal experiences as a parent and a black woman made the interview unique as well. She brought these viewpoints to the interview, highlighting how people's reactions to national crises vary based on their background and identity. She once discussed the emotional impact of George Floyd's last remarks and how it resonated with her on a personal level. Faulkner's methodical and sympathetic style was praised by numerous journalists and experts. Instead of taking an antagonistic position or deferring it, she balanced the conversation. This is just one of the many high points in her career as a top Fox News anchor. Harris Faulkner has a number of noteworthy highlights from his career as a reporter covering some of the biggest news stories of the previous few decades. She has anchored several shows since joining Fox News in 2005, such as Outnumbered and The Faulkner Focus. One of the most notable aspects of her career is the wide range of stories she has covered. Reporting on the AIDS crisis in South Africa early in her career, Faulkner demonstrated her willingness to take on challenging global issues while drawing attention to the epidemic's devastating effects on communities located far from the United States. She also reported on Natalie Holloway's disappearance in Aruba in 2005, a case that made headlines around the world and captivated the public for years as authorities battled to solve the young woman's disappearance. Furthermore, Faulkner covered the Oklahoma City bombing on the ground, which helped portray the scope of the catastrophe as well as the resiliency of the impacted communities. Such assignments demonstrate Faulkner's depth and adaptability as a journalist. In addition to covering international crises and criminal mysteries, she has covered significant domestic events and human interest stories, such as U.S. natural disasters and domestic and international political developments. During her tenure, she has also conducted interviews with presidents and elected officials, moderated high-profile town halls, and handled stories that call for both journalistic objectivity and compassion. The ability to strike a balance between sensitivity to the human aspects of the stories she covers and straightforward, fact-based reporting is what makes Faulkner unique. Her work demonstrates her dedication to providing viewers with a complete understanding of events, whether she is expressing the seriousness of a global health crisis or the suffering of families affected by tragedy. As an experienced journalist, she has discussed her role in influencing public opinion. Harris Faulkner has frequently discussed what it's like to be a well-known black woman in the national news. She has explained how her position fits into a larger narrative of development and transformation in a traditionally homogeneous sector. As the only black woman hosting a daily show on a major cable news network, Faulkner has acknowledged that her mere presence on screen carries symbolic weight that goes beyond audience size and ratings. By doing this, she has claimed that her career represents a change in who was able to occupy space and have an impact on national discourse, rather than merely being a personal accomplishment. Faulkner has encountered presumptions about her beliefs and her approach to significant issues throughout her career, based only on her gender, race, and affiliation with Fox News. She has stated in interviews that before hearing her viewpoint, people frequently assume they know where she stands on controversial issues. Faulkner has stated that rather than seeing this as a drawback, it is a chance to challenge preconceived notions and strict expectations about how a black woman journalist should speak or behave in news coverage by surprising audiences with subtlety and independent thought. Additionally, Faulkner has detailed how these presumptions have manifested in particular situations, like on The View, when hosts inquired about her obligations to certain communities. She responded by emphasizing that she feels obligated to everyone, not just members of a particular group. The network veteran has said that rather than trying to fit into preconceived notions based solely on identity, her objective as a journalist is to bring thoughtful inquiry and a broad perspective to every conversation. Faulkner's position as a top journalist at Fox News has drawn interest from both media analysts and colleagues. Numerous people have observed that Faulkner consistently incorporates elements of her personal experience into conversations while upholding professional standards, which gives her reporting more nuance. She has expanded the public's perception of what it means to lead as a black woman in mainstream media by doing this. You now know Harris Faulkner's fate and the reason she was off the air for roughly 3 months. Which of Harris Faulkner's tragedies, dealing with family matters, deaths, and trauma, was the most horrifying? Please share your opinions in the comments. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.